Thank you. This is Search Marketing Now, broadcasting live from our home base here in the New York area. I am Chris McDonough, and on behalf of the Search Marketing Now webcast team and Optify, our sponsor, thanks for joining us for this really vital topic, from click-through rate to conversion rate, conversions tactics for SEO and SEM. Today we are very happy to welcome Tim Ash from SiteTuners.com and Erez Barak from Optify. Hello, you guys. How are you today?
Terrific, Chris. Tim here. Looking very much forward to it.
Great.
Doing great, Chris.
Right? All right, Erez. Well, thanks for joining us again, you guys, and I'm going to turn it over to Erez in just a few minutes. But before I do that, I'd like to tell our audience a couple of things. If you need some help or have a question for our speakers, just use that Ask a Question box, and we will do our best to get to as many as we can live. If you want to tell a friend or check out Optify or Search Marketing Now, there are some widgets at the bottom of your screen. You can just click below to email a friend or check out our websites. We are standing by, as I mentioned, on Q&A, so make good use of that Ask a Question box. And we are recording this broadcast, and we will make it available for viewing on demand this afternoon. I will let you know when it's ready by an email blast, or just feel free to check back at our website at searchmarketingnow.com and look in the on-demand section. Okay, with all business taken care of, first I would like to ask our audience a question. Let me read this to you. To report on your SEO performance, what do you track and measure? You can track or measure, obviously, keyword ranks on Google, visits to my website, leads generated on my website, revenue generated from the visitors using my keywords, links to my website, or I don't track SEO performance. You can click on one or as many as you'd like of those and just hit Submit Answer. I am going to give you all a second to do that and introduce Erez Barak, our first speaker today. Erez is Vice President of Product and co-founder at Optify. He's a frequent speaker at industry events, and prior to Optify, Erez was a Director of Product Marketing in HP's Software Business Unit. He was also recently named among the top 25 innovators in 2010 by Seattle Business Magazine. We are very happy to have him with us today. And Erez, it looks like I have the results here for you. Yes, I do. Hang on, I'm going to push them out right now. Looks like a pretty even spread at the top there.
So thank you, Chris. Thanks, everyone, for joining the webinar. I also wanted to mention Tommy Unger, Optify's product manager, is joining us today and will take a part of the Q&A section. I'm super excited to talk about this topic. I mean, we've been doing a lot of work looking at tons of data, trying to make sense of a key question we're hearing out in the market. And I'm happy to see that a lot of you are using keyword ranks to track your SEO performance. We know those ranks are a good indicator of success. They're not the end goal. We'll be talking about conversion later on in the webinar, but they're a great indicator for success. And when we went down the path of this research, we were thinking of everyone who's checking ranks. And we're also thinking, okay, so I get ranked, but what does that mean in terms of visits to my site? Our research is about the click-through rate from organic results. And I'm going to go through what click-through rate means, give you a bit of history, present the questions we wanted to answer, the high-level results, and then dive into specifics around high and low CPC keywords, as well as how keyword popularity matters or does not matter to the click-through rate. So before I dive into what we did, I wanted to make sure we're all on the same page around what click-through rate means. So, I went to Wikipedia, probably the best source for these definitions, and looking at CTR, click-through rate, well, it's the number of clicks divided by the number of impressions. It's not the number of persons, but really the number of impressions. So if I think about a search result page, I have people viewing that page. Our question is, out of the people viewing this page for a certain keyword, what's the click-through rate on the first result, on the second result, on the third result? In other words, how important is it to me to rank on the first, second, or third result, on the first page, second page, or below that? So we looked at the history of the data available, and some of you on the call recall in 2006, AOL sort of leaked some great data to the world about search, their click-through rate data, and those curves since then have been used thoroughly in the SEO industry. And they were a cornerstone, and they still are a cornerstone for some of the ROI calculations, and also fuel a lot of debates around what it means to get SEO right, how to justify my SEO efforts. But there's been no substantive study since 2006, and we're tracking the changes on SERPs. Search engine result pages are changing all the time. We know Google is changing the search algorithm on a regular basis. We're seeing the increasing importance of social in search, and thought it was just about the right time for a new CTR curve and answering a few basic questions. So what we did is we took a sample of 250 sites, which we chose randomly to keep the sample clean. And we looked at actually over 10,000 keywords and over 1.2 million clicks on those keywords. We filtered the keywords for search volume, cost, and rank. And then we also viewed all ranks on the first and second result page. So went from rank 1 to 20 in general to see what the results are. Now, one thing that's not mentioned here, and you'll see us publish in the coming months, we actually took two samples at two different time frames. One a few months ago, the other in the past month, and sort of compared the samples to clean out any noise that may be introduced to the research based on a certain time frame. So, as with any research, before I dive into the exciting results, we ask ourselves a few questions. Well, one is, what is that CTR curve? How many clicks does number 1 get? Does number 2 get? And how many clicks go all the way down to the bottom of the second page? Then we also took a deep look, well, is there a correlation between the organic CTR and the CPC value of a keyword? So how much I would pay to advertise for that keyword? And the last question was, well, if a keyword is popular and it has a high search volume, does that affect the CTR? Or when the keyword is a long-tail, non-popular keyword, is there an effect as well? So I present you with the high-level results of the research, and I think this clearly shows, and I'm looking at the chart on the top, the x-axis is the search rank position from 1 to 20, 1 being the first position on the first page, 10 being the last position on the first page, 11 being the first position on the second page, and 20 is as deep as we went. That's the bottom of the second page. On the y-axis, we have the click-through rate in terms of percentage. So in other words, what we see is that if I'm ranked number 1, 37% of the click-through rate goes to my results. So that's at a very high level for all keywords. Number 1, well, I would say not surprising, is a key win. And we also see that if you add position 1, 2, and 3, you get to about 60% of the clicks going to the top 3 results. So ranking on the first rank is important. Ranking at the top of the first page is more valuable than it ever was. Now, you can also see that ranking on the second page, so starting from rank 11 going down to 20, has some benefits. Click-through rate, or people are clicking on results on the second page. You also see the slight bump right above the number 11. So if you see position 11, that's the first position on the second page, and that gives you somewhat of a bump in the click-through rate as well. So that's at a high level. There's another view of this data. Again, this chart is on the y-axis, same thing. This is my click-through rate, so how many people clicked on the result. On the x-axis, I have a view of the first result, which I mentioned before, above the fold. So this is an average of all results above the fold, first page and second page. So the average CTR on page 1 is 9%. it's far higher than the second page, which is 1.5%. This tells us that focusing your SEO efforts on moving keywords to first page, not necessarily the first position, has a lot of value. If I have a bunch of keywords ranking on page 2, moving them to page 1, even if it's not the first position, has a ton of value, moving from an average of 1.5% click-through rate to 8.9%. The other thing we're seeing is that ranking below page 2 has almost no immediate business value. I mean, if the average on page 2 is 1.5, it really drops below that on page 3 and on. It is important to track those up-and-coming contenders for ranking, but in terms of business value, visits to your site, not a lot after page 2. Okay, so that's the sort of high-level view we found. And then we said, okay, let's split this and take a look at how this click-through rate relates to CPC. Well, my cost per click. CPC is the approximate cost per click you may pay if you bid on one of the keywords in Google AdWords. The CPC is averaged over all ad positions. So in other words, if I want to buy a keyword and have it show on page 1, how much would it cost me? So we split the world to cheap keywords. So that's every keyword that costs a quarter or less. Some examples are health tips for women, best canvas printing, trek mountain bike. If I want to buy a position in those keywords, I would pay a quarter or less. And we also looked at expensive keywords. These are keyword phrases that would cost over $1.50 per click if I purchase them. So some examples are photo prints, best auto insurance, and Acura SUV. Those are all expensive terms. So now how does that correlate to CTR is shown in these two graphs. Well, we see Google, and not surprisingly, doing a great job in converting expensive terms. If I look at the click-through rate from organic, it is higher, actually over double the click-through rate than the expensive CPC terms. So 87.5% click-through rate for those cheap terms versus 37% total click rate for those expensive terms. The potential organic traffic is nearly 3 times greater on lower CPC terms. So when I'm devising my strategy, expensive terms should be taken into account, but keep in mind that as you get ranked those cheaper terms, since they get more real estate, since they don't have as much competition from the paid results, would provide a higher click-through rate, actually triple your click-through rate.
Hey, Erez, before you move on, we have a whole bunch of questions from the audience, and they want to know if this is just Google result pages or was this across all search engines?
So that's a great question. Thanks, everyone, for asking. We did our analysis based on Google result pages.
Okay, thanks. I was going to address a bunch of them. Sorry for interrupting. Just wanted to get that clear.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at the results or sort of the most popular view of the results. We're thinking, or our theory is that the results in Google would translate themselves to other search engines. Saying that, our research has been focused on Google results.
No, this is Tommy speaking, the product manager at Optify. The reason we chose Google, number one, is because it is the most popular search engine, but probably more importantly is that they are more forthcoming with their monthly search volumes. And so we could do a proper click-through rate, which is calculated as visits to a website divided by monthly searches by doing monthly Google US visits divided by monthly Google US searches.
That's great. Thanks.
So the next segment of keywords we looked at were popular keywords or long-tail keywords, head terms versus long-tail terms. Again, monthly searches, as Tommy mentioned, taken from Google. They're an approximate 12-month average number of user queries for the keyword. And we treated long-tail terms as terms who have less than 100 average monthly searches. We took out everything that has no monthly searches, so there's a lot of data around 0 monthly search keywords. That is not part of this research. The other section, or the other part, was head keywords. Head keywords are keywords that have an average that's bigger than 1,000 monthly searches, so things like Christmas gifts, Audi A5, BMX make that cut. And then the next step was looking at how CTR looks for popular or long tail versus head terms. So the next slide shows, or gives us the results of head versus long terms. On the top left, again, search rank position, 1 to 10, click-through rate on the y-axis in a percent. On the top right, we're seeing the organic click-through rate for head terms versus long-tail terms. The main takeaways here are, well, if you're optimizing for those head terms, if your keyword research has led you to the decision to optimize for head terms, you probably won't see huge benefits until you get to the top few positions. I mean, note the graph on the top left really jumping up for those head terms from 5% on position 2 to 32% on position 1, but that's quite a steep drop. So until you really get to the top there for those head terms, you will see value, but not significant value. Also, if you're optimizing for the long tail terms, you will see what we define as decent CTR almost anywhere on the first page. I mean, it starts from 25% for the first result, but then gradually drops to 14, then 8% for position 5, all the way down to 3% on the bottom of the page. So keywords may not be as popular, but since they have less competition on the page, you would see that there's higher click-through rate for those long-tail terms. So after reviewing those 3 questions, I want to leave you with a few takeaways before we turn this over to Tim. One is, invest in getting more terms to page 1. Page 1 is key. It's much stronger than page 2. The first position is great, but main worry is invest in getting more terms to page 1. Choose your target keywords. Keep in mind the CPC value as well as the monthly search value. If your goal is leads, sales, or signed customers, make sure you have the mechanism to track all the way there. I mean, keyword ranks are important. We track them. We help you track them. But really keep in mind those business goals and where you want to get. Getting a lot of long-tail keywords to page 1 might be easier. The thing is, it also might be more valuable than getting a few head terms there. Again, keep in mind the higher CTR. So if you take a set of long-tail keywords, get them on the first page, CTR will serve you very well in terms of traffic. And the reason we're running this research or this sample set on a regular basis is staying on top of this. SERPs are changing, search engines are changing, the algorithms are changing, they will continue to change, and we're updating this data as these changes happen. So, I talked about a lot of measurements along the way, and I just want to highlight that the key measurements we focus on here in Optify, one is what we call SEO indicators. Well, help you track your keyword ranks, help you track those ranks over time, also rank or how you're doing in multiple engines. It is key to get a view of how you're doing in the U.S., and if you're interested in international, how you're ranking in international and how you're ranking locally. There's another set of metrics we recommend you track, and those metrics are what we call the business indicators. The business indicators are around your page views, your visitors, your conversion, and your revenue. So we got you there. You got to that first page. You're now starting to get traffic. Start tracking page views, visitors, and revenue, and really important is also looking at conversion. So I think with that point, we're going to look at our next poll question, and then I'm going to hand this over to Tim.
Okay, thanks. Let's see where we are with our polling question here. Here we are. What is your average conversion rate on your landing pages? 0 to 0.5%, 0.5 to 1%, 1 to 2%, 2% to 10%, and I'm sure if it's above 10%, you're not even attending this. That's a pretty good percentage, or I don't know. Just go ahead and hit one of those radio buttons and hit the Submit Answer button. In the meantime, I am going to introduce our friend Tim Ash, who has joined us today. Our next speaker and presenter is SiteTuners CEO Tim Ash. Tim is a world-renowned authority on landing page optimization. In fact, he literally wrote the book on the subject. He speaks and writes frequently on the subject of conversion rate improvement and is also the founder of the Conversion Conference event series. The next conference will be in New York this October. I'm sure he was going to tell you about that, but I'm telling you anyway. In addition to being an excellent speaker, I understand that he is also a pretty good salsa dancer for a white guy. Okay, Tim, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thanks, Chris.
You know what?
Yeah,
Hang on a second. I forgot I was going to push the polling results there for you, too. I was still laughing at what I was saying about you. Here's the results of the poll. There you go.
Well, there are a lot of people that laugh at me, but I have to qualify it definitely for a white guy. I don't pretend to be a great salsa dancer, just for a white guy. I know my limitations. All right, well, let's take a look at these poll results. Well, most of you are kind of in the, I'm guessing, 1 to 2% range. And what's striking about this to me is that 40% almost of you don't know what your conversion rate is. Now, to me, this is if there's one key performance indicator for online marketing, it's that number. It's what percentage of people that get to my site actually take action, whatever that means in your world. It could be a form fill or a registration or a download or a purchase if you're an e-commerce catalog. But whatever that metric is, you need to track it. So all of that work you're doing of driving the traffic, whether it's by SEO or PPC, doesn't really matter for a hill of beans if you can't get those people to do something. And how do you know if you're successful without tracking it? So shame on you. Okay, I'm going to start with the shaming thing. Go put in some basic analytics, or at least turn it on if you already have it, and start tracking that conversion goal as one of the things that you pay attention to. Just some quick background about us, just so you know where we're coming from. SiteTuners has been around since 2002, and we've worked with hundreds of clients, some of whom you see here. What we focus on are conversion best practices, so we can do a review of your landing pages or redesign and give you a blueprint for a much better, higher converting website. We also, of course, do landing page tests and create test plans. So enough about that. What you're really here to hear about, or I hope, are the 5 quick tips that I've put together to increase your lead volume. Now, these aren't in any particular order. They're all equally important. So let's just start with the first one first. Make your call to action clear. Now, it seems like a basic thing that if you want somebody to do something, you should make it clear and ask them what it is and ask them to do it. But unfortunately, that's not the way it always works. Here's an example of a page. What do you think they want you to do on this page? Go ahead and just type your question in or your answer into the Q&A window. Real quick, you're smart people. You're all online marketers, presumably. What do people want you to do on this page? Well, if I'm seeing some answers come in, if it's not to click on the red or to look at the red, call us now. They don't actually want you to call. It's not to look at the Vanna White holding the laptop. It's not to read any of the super detailed text on the page or look at those screenshots of whatever that's supposed to be. They actually want you to click on the iPhone. Can you believe it? Yes, that black iPhone that says 30-day free trial. Now, a lot of people that get this answer right happen to have iPhones, but that's not real obvious to me. So here's the punchline, folks. This is a pay-per-click landing page on Google AdWords. Someone is paying to drive traffic to this page. So if you want them to do the 30-day free trial, don't hide it and don't decorate around it and put a lot of other confusing, distracting elements on the page. Make it obvious. I also call this the mother-in-law test. If your mother-in-law can figure it out, then it's probably obvious enough. By the way, I love my mother-in-law dearly, so I hope she's not listening in. All right, let's move on. Number 2 on the hit parade is asking for less information. Now, if any of you have still not read Seth Godin's book, Permission Marketing, you really owe it to yourself to go out and get a copy. Seth talks about basically this balance where your website visitors are in control, and the scales have to look something like this. Their need and value has to outweigh the hassle and cost of what you're asking them to do. Unfortunately, we're greedy marketers. We want information, and we want form fields, and we ask for information too early in the process, and we want to know everything in the kitchen sink. So that hassle side of the scale actually usually ends up being the heavier one, and people don't take action. Let me show you what I think is an ironic example. Now, Adobe bought recently Omniture, which has a division called Test and Target, which does landing page testing and helps companies with that. And so they have this download for a white paper. It says, Rethinking the Role of the Landing Page in Conversion, which sounds great, and I'd love to get a copy of that. Unfortunately, they ask me about 10 items on their form. You know, what industry I'm in, how many employees, what's my relationship to Omniture, all of this stuff. And I just want the ebook. Let me download it. If it's a good ebook and I'm impressed by your thought leadership, there should be links embedded in it to go to a contact us form, which can collect this information later. But why are you asking me all this stuff up front? It's not worth the hassle and my time to fill it out. All right, well, here's another example. One of our clients, Hearing Planet, has a really good bribe. And they're not trying to get you to buy a hearing aid for $5,000. They're saying, hey, download the Buyer's Guide to Hearing Aids. That'd be a useful resource, I assume, for somebody. Well, but look at the form down below. I don't know if you can see the details, but they're asking for my mailing address. Yeah, okay, what's wrong with this picture, folks? What's the desired conversion action on this page? To download an ebook. What does mailing address have to do with that? What are you going to do? Send me spam? Send me something through my regular mail? I don't want any kind of relationship with you. I just want that ebook. So what is let me just ask you another question. Do you want to raise your conversion rate by 17% right now today? Now, if you have an address on your ebook download page, that's really simple because all you do is take it off. We did that in a split test and got a 17% higher conversion rate. May not seem like a lot, but that's not even the end of the story. Our client insisted that they needed all of these remaining fields on the form, and that's good. But let's step back and think about, is this absolutely necessary to complete the current transaction? What do you need to download an ebook? What information do you need? What's the minimum required? I bet you dollars to donuts that almost all of you are sitting there thinking, just the email address. And if that's how you think, I would again accuse you of being a greedy marketer because you don't need anything. Nothing, nada, bupkis. Let me download the ebook. And if it's a really good piece, guess what? I'm going to circulate it. I'm going to send it to my insurance provider and send it to my spouse or the caretakers of my elderly parents. Or all of these people are going to have it in their hands, and you haven't lost anything because inside of that ebook is a nicely formatted link that says schedule your hearing test now at a local facility, your free hearing test. And you could do that. The only thing you lost was this sense of control of having the information in hand already. Well, you know what? You don't need the information now. You may need it later. You may need to do have IT do their job and do it via progressive disclosure and asking for a little bit at a time until you build up my full profile. But don't nuke the conversion rate by asking for too much. Here's another example. This is a debt negotiation firm, and they have this long-winded form, first name, spouse, last name, best time to call, home phone, cell phone, work phone, all of this stuff. And we ask them, what do you do with this information? Well, they said, well, we sell leads, so we need to phone qualify everyone to make sure that they're solid. And they said, what's the minimum of information you guys need to do that? And this is what ended up being on this winning page. First name, last name, email, phone, so we can contact them, state, because they have radically different laws regarding debt, and debt amount. If you don't have a certain amount of debt, it's not worth for us to talk to you at all. Now, a lot of other things have changed on this page, but I bet you anything that a huge part of that 51% gain, which, by the way, was a $48 million a year profit impact on this company, was due to shortening the form. Look at how much less imposing it looks than this form on the previous page that I showed you. Now, isn't it a lot less kind of effort psychologically to even look at or consider these two forms? Here's the new one. It's a lot simpler and a lot more inviting. All right, let's move on. Number 3, cut down your text. If you haven't got the memo yet, people don't read on the web. People don't read at all. Dr. Jacob Nielsen, who's keynoted at the Conversion Conference before, is kind of the godfather of web usability, and he's done study after study after study that says the same thing. Cut down your text. It increases retention of information. It increases conversion. Here's another pay-per-click landing page on Google AdWords. Now, take a look at this. Canyon Tours. We have over 180 different kinds of tours of the Grand Canyon, blah, blah, blah. Is anybody reading this stuff? I doubt it. I mean, maybe your 7th grade grammar teacher is proud of you for finally writing in complete sentences and paragraphs, but you know what? You're killing yourself in your conversion rate. No one will sit still for this. We're in a highly activated state. We're searching around the web. We have infinite information that we have immediate access to. So who's going to sit there and read a novel online? Nobody. So just say no. I mean, look at this next page. This is for rack-mounted servers. Now, that's a pretty geeky subject. But look at the amount of text on this page. Don't you just want to dive right in because it's so inviting? I mean, I don't know if you remember the old Charlie Brown cartoons where the kids are in the class and the adults are talking, like the teacher at the front of the class, and all the kids hear this trombone sound. It's like, wah, 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 wah. And that's what people hear when you write incomplete sentences on the web. So cut down your text. Have subtitles, have short bullet lists, have more detailed links that take them to supporting information in case they need it. I'm not saying don't have it, but certainly don't put it on your home page or landing page and expect people to read it. It's just not going to happen. Okay, one more tip. We're almost to the last one. Number 4 is keeping your promises. Keep your promises. I'm sure your mom raised you that way, but again, being greedy marketers, we don't always do that. We don't keep our promises. And I'm here to tell you, nobody just teleports to your homepage. It's not like the holodeck of the Starship Enterprise and they just appear and materialize out of thin air. They came from somewhere. And they had an expectation that was set by where they came from, whether it's SEO or PPC or affiliate traffic or a banner ad or an email you sent them, an expectation was formed. And the number one driver of conversion is not low price or your value proposition or any of the stuff I'm talking about. It's intent. It's matching your visitor's intent. They wanted to do something. They came to your page. You promised them you could help them with that, and you're following through on your promise. Let me show you an example of this. Okay, let's say I'm on Google and I Google best digital camera. Okay, well, I might get a pay-per-click ad. In fact, I do, that looks like this. Now let's take a quick look at this. What is the thinking here? Best digital camera. Let's deconstruct it. That'll help me because that's what I typed in. Okay, get expert reviews of top cameras from Consumer Reports. Wow, that's definitely going to help me. Consumer Reports is a very trusted consumer advocacy organization and rating agency. I trust these guys, so my expectation is really, really high. Okay, and what's my intent? My intent is I'm going to go to this next page, and I'm going to get camera reviews that will help me pick the best digital camera. Right? Well, let's see what happens on the actual landing page. Here it is. It starts out well, top-rated digital cameras. That's great. Okay, over 56 models tested. I like that. Okay, in the upper right, it's got the top brands. Fantastic. I recognize most of those. So this is going to be good. Oh, except for the part where there's this big red button on 2 spots in the page. Join today. Join today. What do they really mean by join today? Well, they mean pay us money, subscribe, flip your wallet open, get your credit card out. That's what they mean by join today. Now think of how disappointing this is, because what did they promise me? What was my intent? They promised me expert reviews of digital cameras. They lied to me. Now what could they have done differently? Well, they could have shown me the summary of a review. Or they could have shown me a full sample review, but from last year's models that are no longer sold, so I can see the quality of the information. Or they could have at least given me a list of the cameras that are reviewed so I can see if I'm interested in one of them. They could have done something to pique my attention. But as it is, they've basically just lied to me. I mean, instead of join today on that button, it might as well say go away or never pay me a dime of your money, because that would be equally effective, folks. So keep your promises. This is what happens, by the way, when the pay-per-click folks that are writing the ads aren't talking to the landing page folks that are creating the landing pages. And this is an even bigger problem for SEO, because you want a good experience for human beings and one for search engine spiders, and they aren't usually the same thing. So make sure that you make that connection. Don't just drop the traffic off at the front door and say, here it is, and then at the curb, rather, and then have somebody have to carry that into the house. Make the connection. Really important. Okay, have one more topic I want to talk to you about, and that is make your trust visible. Now, here's the problem with online marketing. If you're dealing with a person face-to-face, you know a lot about them. You can look them in the eye. You can see whether they're dressed well, whether they showered that day. You can determine all of these things by their facial expressions, and there's a lot of communication information automatically flowing back and forth. You don't have that on the impersonal internet. You don't know anything about them. And to make things worse, there have been studies that say we will form a first impression of a landing page within a 20th of a second. That's right, a 20th of a second, folks. And it's subliminal. It's automatic. You can't fake it out. We do judge a book by its cover. So the hard task for us as online marketers is to create trust and not do it over an extended period of time, but to do it in a split second. So I'm going to give you some thoughts about how to do that, and more importantly, how not to do that. Here's an example. Smart Bargains is an online shopping site, and I put the scroll line in there, and that's on a pretty big monitor. Now, at the bottom, they have these fantastic trust symbols. Better Business Bureau Online, we ship by UPS, we accept Visa, top seller ratings, and so on, VeriSign, all good stuff. Here's the problem. No one's going to see it. It's invisible. Only 5 to 15% of people will scroll down to the bottom of a page like this. So if all of those trust marks are so important, in fact, you're probably paying for many of them to be associated with those companies in one way or another, then why are you burying them at the bottom of your page where they're going to have no impact at all? Okay, here's another example. PetSmart, this is the exact polar opposite. What do you normally see in the upper left of a website or landing page? Well, it's the logo. It anchors your whole experience. And here, this was a while ago. HackerSafe is now owned by McAfee Secure, and that's the brand name. But they had the HackerSafe symbol in the upper left of their site. Now, of course, they compensated for that by jumbo-sizing their logo and putting it into the middle of the header. But basically, you get this instant two-part message from this site. We're safe to shop with. You really can trust our security. We're PetSmart. You see how compelling that is? Before you even look at the rest of the site, you have that going in. Now let's take a radical U-turn and look at this site. Grand Pianos, anyone? Yes, believe it or not, this is a site for buying grand pianos. And it looks like it's a time warp back to 1995 when the web was young. These people are one of the biggest advertisers on Google AdWords for the term grand pianos. Go there right now, type in grand pianos, and you'll probably see Rick Jones pianos. And it's this horrid site. In fact, this is kind of funny. It looks like they have two home buttons, one in the upper left there in the red and one in the upper right. It's kind of like, I guess, shift keys on a keyboard or something. Yeah, we definitely need two ways to get home. Nice and symmetric balance there. Anyway, this site is horrible, and it undermines the professionalism that they're trying to convey. And, in fact, they're an established company. They're one of the biggest sellers of pianos on the East Coast. They're authorized repair centers and warranty centers for all of the major brands that they carry. But you wouldn't know that by looking at this site. There's nothing here that says trust us. In fact, the production quality of the site says don't trust us. Here's another example. We had a client that had Real Age, they're owned by Hearst Publishing, that has this Real Age quiz where you fill in your information online and you find out what your real age is, quote unquote, based on how well you've maintained your body. Well, they're asking for some pretty personal information in this questionnaire, and one of the tests we did was adding the media mentions. So this is the winning page from the test, and it had the media mentions added to it. And these are brands that have spent hundreds of millions drumming those media outlets and brands into our head. 40% lift in conversion, folks. Same traffic, mostly coming from pay-per-click, 40% higher conversion rate just by adding those badges and trust logos. You can do this in business to business as well. This is one of our clients, SF Video. They do large-scale DVD and Blu-ray duplication. Now, there's a quote form on the left-hand side of the page, but most of the page is actually taken up by their client list. And think about it. If you're thinking about large-scale DVD duplication and you happen on this landing page, your thought process probably goes something like this. Wow, they work with Walmart and Nike and Microsoft and ABC and AT&T. I hope they'll take my little itty-bitty duplication job because clearly they can handle it. Do you have any doubt that they can handle it? By the way, we tested this page without those trust logos, and that's what caused it to be 58% higher. You remove those logos, well, it's not 58% lower, but you lose that 58% lift. Let me show you how important trust is, and this is especially true for unknown companies. So one of our clients is Credo Mobile. They're a Bay Area-based, socially conscious cell phone company, and this is a landing page for one of their email campaigns. Get this phone, we'll buy you out of your existing contract. All is good with the world. The only question is, who are these guys? If you've never heard of Credo Mobile, you're probably not going to be very responsive to this. And there's nothing on this site that says you should trust us, or at least visually. So we helped redesign the page. We did one of our online reviews and helped their internal team redesign the page. And this is the new page that we came up with. Now, if you're a graphic designer, you probably think boring. It's just a more bland version of the other page. But we did this intentionally because we wanted to control the visual attention on the page. Now, here's one way to kind of demonstrate that. On their original page, we ran our Attention Wizard software. You're welcome to check it out at attentionwizard.com. And what it does is it creates a prediction of where people will focus on the page based on the visual interest. And you see those yellow hot spots. The biggest ones on the left-hand side are actually in blank areas that are just formed by the weird corners and contrasting colors of their design. But the call to action button, which is green in the middle, is actually not getting much airplay because it's lost in that sea of more distracting stuff. And there's no trust on the page. So when we built the second page, we very carefully fine-tuned this and ran it through Attention Wizard several times to get the focus just so. You can see it's on the phone and the hero shot on the left, on the call to action button at the bottom, and we also deliberately put attention on the right side of the page at the top of the list, which builds trust. Now, what's over there? What's over there are the logos of companies that they donate money to, charities, Greenpeace, Planned Parenthood, Doctors Without Borders. Most people would recognize those brands, and without them, you're not going to be successful. So was this hard, this redesign of the page that I just showed you? I hope not. It wasn't rocket surgery in Steve Krug's words, but it had a huge impact. And I'm not going to have you guess. I'm just going to tell you the answer, and the answer is it was 84% better, 84% higher conversion with the new page. And I'm sure that trust was a significant portion of that lift. Okay, well, we're almost done here. Looking forward to the Q&A. I want to just leave you with a couple of requests. First, take off your rose-colored glasses. Your baby is ugly. Your landing page is costing you a lot of money, whether it's a standalone page or critical pages on your site. Look for the ugly stuff. Look for the stuff that's broken. See it with new eyes of somebody that doesn't care, is highly activated, has very short attention span, like a lit match, and then you're going to see it more realistically. And second, get to work, because otherwise this whole webinar and everything we've been talking about is just a bunch of hot air and a waste of your time. Go and apply one of these 5 tips to your site. I'm sure you'll see conversion lift out of it. If you want to reach me, I'm very accessible. There's my contact information, and I believe this slide deck will be available to you, but connect with me by any of those means. Check out attentionwizard.com, the Conversion Conference. Again, next one's coming up in New York in October. And I'm going to throw it back to you, Chris, for the Q&A.
Okay, great. I do want to clarify something. This slide deck is not available for download. We do have it available on demand starting this afternoon. Anytime you want, and it'll be up for as long as, I can imagine for a long time. So you have plenty of time to go view it. Okay, I have a whole bunch of questions to get to, so I'm going to go ahead and get started right away. But I first want to make sure that I bring back Erez. And Erez, do you want to tell the audience a little bit about Tommy Unger as well before we get going? I think you're on mute, Erez.
Actually, we just lost Erez's line. I'll call it back out.
All right. Well, you know what? Then I'm just going to go ahead and get started on this question right here, actually, first, which I think, Tim, is for you. So we'll wait while we get them back. Here we go. And, Tim, let's see. Here's your first question. Tim, if we cut down the text on the page, can we put the text below the natural flow of the page so that it can be read? It can be read, it wanted to, or be SE friendly.
SEO friendly. I think I got that. Yeah.
Okay,
so I think there are several questions along those lines. Yeah. So the short answer is, look, you have to serve two masters. If you want Google to be happy, there's got to still be some 350 to 400 words of thematically correct anchor text and text on the page. But you also want human beings to be happy. And if you just design for SEO, people won't be happy. So at the top of the page, you should have a good, simple, graphical, more or less experience for people. And you can put the SEO text on the page. But also I'd say don't be paralyzed by changes to your SEO. The on-page stuff over time is less and less important. More and more they're looking for inbound links, or more recently social media signals. They're not really looking at what's on the page so much. They're looking at the authority of the people saying that your stuff is important.
Hey, Chris, we're back online.
Oh, good, Erez. Thanks. I just wanted to make sure the audience knew that you were back and to have you tell us a little bit about Tommy before we get going, and then we're going to get going with some of these questions.
We're back online. Tommy, our product manager, Tommy Unger, is here with me, and we've been reviewing the questions as they came up. So once you bring them up, we'll do our best job to answer them.
Okay, great. Here is another question I got queued up, and then we'll get to some of the other ones. I see worst to best, but if we are establishing metrics up front, are there average targets we should look at?
I think that really you should use yourself as a benchmark, and that's all you can do. Competitive research only makes sense if you have high volumes and reliable data. I mean, things like click-through rate by position, and there's millions or actually billions of transactions that probably went into the research we saw earlier from Optify. But for your own site, I think you just need to benchmark what you have now and just try to beat that. And in most cases, our clients see double-digit or even triple-digit lifts. So there's a lot of value locked up in it. Don't even worry about your competitors other than surveying them to see if they're doing anything right that you can steal from them.
Okay, let's move on to another question. As I said, we have a whole bunch of them, so I'm just going to keep firing them at you. So take a breath when you can. How can you show your trust if you're a service provider instead of e-commerce?
Well, actually, that's a great question. So if you're business to business and or you're not selling anything, there's lots of sources of trust. One is third-party reviews. Another is testimonials. Third, as I showed on the SF video example, is a client list. If you're a service provider, who are your clients? If you work with business to business, then put some of your marquee clients on. We have them on our homepage. It's a great source of trust. Associations you belong to, anything that you're proud of, trade groups, media mentions, all of that. And then also just the sheer number of customers you have. So, over 20,000 customers since 1997. See testimonials and have a link off to a light box with the testimonials that scroll on and on forever with happy clients.
Okay, thanks. And here is one, I believe, for Erez and Tommy. Can you please clarify how you are ranking the keywords in your study? Are you including paid search results and Google Maps places results in those rankings? For example, when you say the top 3 search results have a 37% click-through, but what if they are, I don't even know what the rest of that is. Sorry, they must have run out of space.
Yeah, this is Tommy. We are doing just Google organic click-through rate and just Google organic ranks. So that's on page 1, that means we're looking at the 10 organic ranks. If Google happens to be interspersing ads or maps or that sort of thing, we're not accounting for that. However, we are accounting for that in a way, and that would be one of our comparisons where we talk about the high CPC terms. That's an example where Google puts a lot of other things on the page that reduces overall organic click-through rate. And it's in the end, Google is trying to make money, so you'll see that they really use the ads to take up clicks more than they even use a lot of their other universal listings. And then, yeah, that's it.
That's it?
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right. And let's move to another question. Are there standard metrics for each area that we should look at to be our benchmark?
Well, on the conversion side, your conversion rate really means something different. So if you're just counting things, like how many people filled out a form, that's just a percentage of visitors filling out the form. That's fine. But if you have something that has economic value that's different, let's say you have multiple goals on a page, like download a white paper versus fill out a contact form, then you have to go to the actual value of each of those events and back into the value. So what you're really optimizing for there would be something like revenue per visitor. If you're trading off among several different things, that's what you need to do. Or in e-commerce, you should even take it further, and you might have different profit margins on different product lines or products. So you actually should say, profit dollars per visitor to take that into account.
In the context of the organic CTR, I would say there are the standard metrics we typically look at are, as I mentioned, the keyword ranks, how they do over time, and that gives you more of a relative view of how well you're doing, as well as how you're ranking in multiple engines. And when traffic hits your site, the page views, visitors, conversion rate, and ultimately revenue are the 4 metrics we track on that side.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to move on to a little bit of a technical question here, so I believe this is going back to Tommy here. How do you test pages on actual website or simulated tests with consumer panel?
Actually, I think that might be more appropriate for me, Chris.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, whoever, jump in.
Yeah, sorry, this is Tim. Yeah, sorry. So I think the question was to landing page testing. I'm going to broaden it out and say, what's a good approach to conversion rate improvement? Do you need to test everything? And the answer is definitely no. A lot of things you can fix just through best practices reviews and redesigns. And you can get a lot of your known problem areas taken care of that way. So a lot of times people come to us and say, well, we need a landing page test. And we say, well, no, the problem is if we fix this page in the middle of your ugly site, the context of your ugly site is still going to be there, and you're not going to have nearly the impact you think you will. So we actually end up doing kind of a blueprint for a redesigned site. Now, once you've done that, then you can use that as a jumping off point for real testing. But you could probably capture 70% of the value just by having a best practices review and redesign done.
All right, thanks, Tim. Here is a really good question, actually. If you cut down your text, how does that work for SEO? For search engines need about 500 words to scan a page and consider it relevant for the keyword.
The text can still be on the page. The question is where and how much visual emphasis you give it. Again, if you have a mostly graphical, navigational type of experience at the top, you can still have all of your SEO text on the page. I don't think anything, good conversion is not against good SEO.
Yeah, I mean, this is Erez. I think Tim touched on this before. You got to make sure you strike the right balance. I mean, if you get a lot of people to your page, but it's worthless in terms of conversion, you must be doing something wrong or not hitting your business results. If you pay the price of not getting as many people, but conversion grows, that's when you're starting to see, or that's when you're heading into that right balance. So I absolutely agree with Tim. These efforts should balance out each other and achieve a synergy versus saying, hey, we just want to optimize for SEO because at the end of the day, you wouldn't be hitting that business goal.
Okay, thanks for that answer. Now, we've got a couple of questions on head terms, and one wants they want to be sure that you explain what that is again. And also this, based on Erez's presentation, it seems like SEO shouldn't focus on head terms, but instead use PPC. If you want traffic from these terms, can you talk more about that split and mix between SEO and PPC?
So let me clarify a few terms we talked about. We categorize keywords as cheap, and that means I would pay less, a quarter or less, in order to show up in the page results. So that's cheap. And then we said our expensive keywords, and these are keywords that would cost more than $1.50 for each click I get from the paid results. Now, the question, or diving into the question, it seems like SEO shouldn't focus on head terms, but instead use PPC if you want traffic from these terms. So in general, what we preach to is, again, there's a fine balance between getting your SEO campaigns and your PPC campaigns aligned. There's a fine balance in getting the right traffic to your site, and I think in the case of the head terms, you should be looking at the stats and saying, well, head terms are great in terms of traffic, but do I really have a chance to get to those top positions? If the answer is yes, absolutely go for it. The CTR would be great. If the answer, well, this is a real big long shot for me, and it might take me up to or over 12 months, you might be considering the right balance with PPC at that point of time.
Yeah, and Erez, just to kind of piggyback off of that, I mean, it's important to understand that different keywords show different intent. So the more general searches, the head terms, the more shorter, more common searches are going to be the people at the top of the funnel. And, of course, everybody wants to bid on the word, Reebok Airflow Model 30 and have people buy their shoes, but that's at the very bottom of the funnel, and there are very few of those. So don't forget that the general searches, the ones where people are still in research or comparison mode, are just as important, and they're usually undervalued. So you need to kind of have a balanced portfolio of keywords in your PPC campaign and also in your SEO.
All right, thanks, you guys, for that answer. And let's throw out one more question out here. Can you explain how to optimize an SEO landing page? Since it's not a PPC landing page, you don't always control which page it would be, and changing the content completely might get you dropped in rank.
Yeah, so again, I'll let Erez speak to this, but just a quick comment, that is, don't be paralyzed by making changes to your site. Again, if you make them especially gradually in a progressive manner, you can have a plan that evolves from your text-heavy on top page to a more user-friendly page by doing a series of 4 or 5 intermediate steps over a 2 or 3 month period. And so you're just taking baby steps, and it shouldn't throw up any red flags. So that's a strategy we often recommend.
Yeah, I mean, for an SEO landing page, I think what the common mistake I see is people are assuming a keyword ranks for a page, but it actually ranks for a different page. So first and foremost, I advise find out which page you're ranking for. Actually measure that and know what that page is, and don't assume that, because that's sort of an assumption or it's something that never changes in PPC unless you change the target page, but it will change on you in SEO. So first find out what that page is. And then, again, looking at the content, the more you switch the content around, the more likely the search engine is to pick that change up. So you want, again, that change to keep the content or what you think the relevant content for the keyword is, but also highlight the call or calls to action you have on that page. Again, think of a balance. I got people here. Google is actually aligning, or the search engines are actually aligning a keyword I'm thinking about, or customers who are searching for me are thinking about with this page. Now, how do I keep that alignment and at the same time increase my conversion?
Okay, thanks. Thanks very much, both of you, actually, and Tommy as well, for joining us today. This is a very vital topic, and hopefully everybody's going to leave here with some good information to increase their conversions. And if you didn't get enough of it right now, make sure you take a look at it again on the on-demand. There's so much information to absorb the first pass, and again, it will be available later on this afternoon. On our website, if you have any questions for the Search Marketing Now team, you can get us at webcast@searchmarketingnow.com. You can also visit Optify. Again, at the bottom of your page, there's a little avatar there you can click on and check their website out. Again, that's all for our broadcast today. We look forward to seeing you next time right here at Search Marketing Now.